The train whistle-keened through the brittle morning, slicing across the open plain like a wound refusing to close. Snow fell like sifted flour, thin and soundless, dusting the empty rail station where a lone figure stood, hands clutching a threadbare carpet bag. Her name had once meant something. Annabeth Coyle, daughter of the Reverend, keeper of hymns and proper silences. But that name had been stripped from her like a skin when the doctor's words came. Barren. Useless. Unfit for matrimony. Now she stood where her sister was supposed to, wrapped in a borrowed wool coat and shame that did not belong to Susanna. The letter Susanna had left was still in her pocket, folded so many times the creases had become soft as fabric. I can't live a life chosen for me, it read. But maybe you can, Annabeth. You've always known how to endure. I never could, endure. That was the word men used for mules and women without babies. And now she was both. The train hissed and stilled. A man stepped forward through the vapor, broad-shouldered, wide in the chest and middle, with a face carved from the plains. Beau McCrae. He held no flowers, gave no greeting. Just eyed her like a purchase at auction. You Annabeth? He asked, voice low and even. She nodded, throat too thick to answer. He didn't offer a hand, just turned toward a waiting wagon, his long oilskin coat snapping in the wind. She followed, boots crunching over fresh snow, stomach tight with dread. The ride to the ranch was long and silent, save the creak of wood and the occasional caw from the horses. She watched the land pass, frozen, wind-scarred, endless. Nothing like the green hills of her girlhood, where wildflowers whispered under every fence post. This land didn't whisper. It bore down. I wrote for a wife, Beau said suddenly. One who could cook, keep house, look after the young uns. She studied his profile. I can manage those things. Don't need romance, he added after a pause. Just peace. Peace. It sounded almost worse. The house came into view, a squat wooden thing with a slanting roof and smoke curling from the chimney. 2 children peered out from the frosted window, a boy with a cowlick and a girl clinging to a tattered rag doll. Neither smiled. Inside, the warmth smelled of potatoes and old wood. The girl, Daisy, maybe 5, ducked behind a chair. The boy, Cal, perhaps 7, stared like a colt sizing up danger. Annabeth knelt slowly, palms open. Hello there. They said nothing. Beau shrugged off his coat. They don't talk much. Since their ma passed. What happened to her? Fever, he answered, flat and final. That night, Annabeth lay in a narrow bed under a lumpy quilt, listening to the wind batter the eaves. She heard Beau moving about below, boots pacing, then a long, scraping silence. She imagined him staring at the fire, at the shadows his life had become. He'd buried love. She'd been buried by shame. They were ghosts sharing a roof. The next morning, she found Cal and Daisy outside, watching a hen peck at a frozen puddle. She offered them bread with honey, crouched low like she was taming wild things. They took it without a word, crumbs catching on small lips. A flicker of something passed between them. Curiosity, not quite trust. In town, things were less quiet. Dustwell Ridge was the kind of place where truth and rumor tangled like tumbleweed. At the Mercantile, women paused their chatter when Annabeth entered. One whispered loud enough to carry. That's her, the older one. Her, the young, pretty sister ran off. Another smirked. Well, the fat rancher can't be picky, can he? Annabeth felt the heat rise up her throat. She bought coffee and lye soap, her hands trembling. On the way out, she met eyes with Miss Temperance Bly, the postmistress, sharp-tongued and bonnet like a war general. You're Susanna's sister, ain't you? The woman asked, voice honeyed and sour. I am, Annabeth said, chin lifted. Temperance smiled like a trap. We all have crosses to bear. Back at the ranch, she scrubbed dishes until her knuckles ached. Beau said nothing about her trip, just passed her the lantern and went out to the barn. She followed, unsure why. Inside, he was kneeling beside a foaling mare, breath steaming, hands steady. Need help? She asked. He glanced up. Didn't expect you to offer. I didn't expect to stay, she replied, surprising herself. The mare whinnied, and Beau returned to the work, saying only, "Then why are you?" She didn't know. Or maybe she did. Maybe because leaving meant facing that train platform again and the silence it carried. The days passed slow. She mended socks, cooked meals, read to the children who didn't reply. One night, Daisy coughed long and hard, small body shivering. Annabeth gathered her up and held her close, humming a hymn she barely remembered. Beau stood at the doorway, saying nothing, but he didn't leave until the coughing stopped. Later, he said, "Thank you," like it hurt to say it. She nodded. She's a good child. They both are. Just scared. Like their pa. He paused, then added, like their new ma, too. It wasn't a declaration, just a truth left in the room like a cooling ember. In the evenings, they sat by the hearth, not talking much. Sometimes he would nod off in the rocking chair, boots still on, hands crossed over his belly. She'd watch him, thinking how strange it was that she'd feared him, feared the weight of him, the reputation, the whispers. But he was gentle in ways he didn't know how to name. A man not born for tenderness, but carrying it anyway. She began to write letters to Susanna, though she never sent them. She folded them into the Bible on the nightstand, between Psalms and Proverbs. "I lied to him," she wrote, asterisk, but not with words. "With the parts of me I let him believe were hers, asterisk." Then, one dusk, as they were eating by lantern light, Cal slid a drawing across the table. It was crude, for figures holding hands beneath a crooked house. One woman had red yarn glued for hair. Annabeth's breath caught. "You drew this?" she asked. Cal nodded. "Is that me?" He shrugged. "Ma had red hair, but you read stories like she used to." Beau looked away, blinking fast. Later, while the others slept, Annabeth stood at the window, hands pressed to the glass. The snow had stopped. The stars spilled across the sky, sharp and cold. She didn't feel like a thief anymore. Not quite, but the lie hadn't disappeared. It waited, patient beneath the quiet. And somewhere inside her, she knew, truth had a way of rising, like spring sap, or a buried seed finding light. And when it did, she wondered, would this fragile peace still hold? Spring crept in slow and cautious, like a stray animal sniffing around the edge of the house. The snow began to melt in patches, revealing dead grass and stones beneath, and with it, the quiet grief in the McCrae household began to loosen its grip. Annabeth rose each morning before the rooster, kneading bread with calloused hands, and Beau would nod his thanks over coffee, his voice always a little rasped from sleep. They had settled into a rhythm, not love, not yet, but something steadier than survival. The children, too, softened. Daisy began to hum while drawing, and Cal followed Annabeth with quiet questions about where she came from, what her mother had been like, whether she had ever ridden a horse fast enough to feel like flying. Sometimes she answered truthfully. Sometimes she shaped the truth into something gentler. She had not yet told Beau everything. Not about the lie of her name. Not about Susanna. Not about the long ache of being unwanted, of being disowned like spoiled milk left too long on the shelf. Each day she kept the secret. The weight of it grew heavier. She'd thought it would disappear in the work, in the tending of children and cattle, in the lull of long evenings beside a crackling fire. But it didn't. It waited. On a warm Sunday, they rode into town. The church bell was already ringing, and the pews creaked under familiar judgment. Annabeth wore her plainest dress, but it didn't matter. She felt eyes crawling over her like insects. The whispers had not stopped. They had only been waiting. Miss Temperance Bly stood like a crow at the chapel steps, bonnet tight, lips tighter. "Back again, are you?" she said, not looking at Annabeth, but through her. "Funny how your sister never came. One wonders what kind of woman would step into another's place so quiet-like." Annabeth said nothing. Her hands balled in her gloves. Temperance clicked her tongue. No ring, no vows, and already playing house? Mercy me, Reverend Coyle must be spinning in his grave. That name stung harder than any slap. She turned, leaving the church steps behind without a backward glance, her heart pounding like hooves on hard soil. Bo followed her in silence, his gait stiff, as if shame clung to him too. They rode home without speaking. The air between them had turned brittle. That night, Bo didn't come inside until the lanterns had burned low. When he did, his voice was thick. "Is it true?" Annabeth didn't need to ask what he meant. She met his gaze and let the truth spill in one long exhale. "I wasn't meant to come. Susanna was. But she ran. Left me the ticket, the dress, the name." Her voice cracked. "I thought if I could just be useful, if I stayed quiet and worked hard enough, wouldn't matter." Bo stared at her. "So who are you?" "I'm Annabeth, the woman who held your daughter when she cried. The one who taught Cal to read again. The one who fell asleep stitching your coat by candlelight." Her hands trembled. "The one who never meant to lie, but did." He didn't speak, just turned and walked out into the dark. For 3 days, he barely looked at her. The silence in the house was louder than any storm. The children noticed. Cal grew sullen. Daisy cried when her porridge was too hot. Annabeth moved through the days like a shadow. She packed quietly on the 4th morning, folded each dress like a funeral cloth, kissed the sleeping children's foreheads, left a note on the hearth. As she stepped outside, the wind picked up, cold for spring. She pulled her shawl tight and crossed the yard, eyes fixed on the distant hills. She didn't hear the hoofbeats at first, not until they thundered close and fast. Bo rode up, breathless, his horse slick with sweat and his eyes wild. "You think you're going to leave now?" he shouted. "After everything?" "I lied to you," she said softly, turning to face him. "Everything we built. If it was built on a lie, then it can't hold." He dismounted, boots sinking in the damp earth. "You think I cared about your sister's name? About town gossip? I ain't never cared what they say. But I care when you don't tell me who you are." "I was afraid," she whispered. "I was too," he said. "Still am." He pulled something from his coat, a crumpled drawing Cal had made. For figures, hand in hand, beneath a crooked roof house. He smoothed it gently. "I looked at this every night you were quiet. I thought, maybe that's our house. Maybe it don't matter how we got here, only what we do now." She took the drawing, touched the red yarn glued for her hair. "That's not Susanna," she said. "No," Bo said. "That's you." He stepped closer, removing his hat. "I'm not good with words. I ain't handsome. I ain't thin. But I know what peace feels like now, and I know who brought it." Tears gathered in her lashes. "I don't need romance. I wasn't offering it," he said with a crooked grin. "I was offering home." In the stillness that followed, she let herself believe it. That grace might bloom in the soil of broken things. That she could be chosen, not by force or duty, but because someone saw her and stayed anyway. They walked back to the house together, the silence between them now soft and full. That night, she read to the children as Bo carved quietly in the corner. He was making a nameplate for the barn. Asterisk, asterisk, the Caleb McGraw Ranch, asterisk, asterisk. Each letter slow and deliberate. When Daisy fell asleep in Annabeth's lap, Bo lifted her carefully, like he was carrying something holy. Later, Annabeth stood alone on the porch, watching stars scatter across the sky. Behind her, the door creaked open. Bo stepped out, handed her a cup of tea. "Wasn't sure if you'd still be here," he said. "I wasn't sure you'd come after me." They sipped in silence. He cleared his throat. "There's a preacher passing through next week. If you still want to be Annabeth McGraw, truth and all, we could make it right." She didn't answer, just slipped her hand into his, rough and warm, and let it stay there. In the still air, something shifted. Not a promise. Not yet, but the breath before it. And in the morning, when Miss Temperance Bly would ride into town and find a letter nailed to the church door, one signed with Annabeth's own name, in her own careful hand, the whole town would know. She had not been chosen by fate. She had chosen herself.